Era number 2, the push for reforms, the 1970s to the 1990s. With the nation of teens and college students protesting and over 500,000 young Americans serving in Vietnam, President Richard Nixon officially declared the war on drugs on June 17, 1971. At the same time as he was pulling troops out of Vietnam in an apparent loss, facing questions brought up by the revelation of the Pentagon Papers and a slumping economy. Some historians believe the war on drugs was an attempt by Nixon to distract from his other shortcomings and shore up support from his conservative base. Let's take a look at 4 ways the war on drugs affected the cannabis plant. Number 1, increased penalties. Nixon's war on drugs led to harsher penalties for drug offenses, including cannabis possession and distribution. This included longer prison sentences and substantial fines, making the legal consequences of cannabis related to activities more severe. This is why you see some defendants in certain states serving life sentences for small amounts of cannabis possession. This, of course, affected the black and brown communities more harshly. Number 2, the creation of the DEA. In 1973, Nixon created the Drug Enforcement Administration, consolidating several existing agencies into one. The DEA's focus on enforcing drug laws, included those related to cannabis, led to increased arrests and prosecutions, reflecting a more aggressive approach to drug control. 3, and maybe one of the biggest, scheduling of cannabis. Under the Controlled Substance Acts of 1970, cannabis was classified as a Schedule I substance, the most restrictive category. This classification asserted that cannabis had a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use, making any possession, distribution, or production a federal crime. And 4th, a shift in the focus of funding. The war on drugs marked a shift from treating drug use primarily as a public health issue to treating it as a criminal justice issue. More resources were allocated to law enforcement and incarceration rather than treatment and prevention, leading to a more punitive approach to cannabis and other drugs, and in my humble opinion, has led to our mental health crisis our country currently has in 2023. All of these policies marked a significant shift in the U.S. government's approach to drug use and had lasting impacts on the legal and cultural landscape, not only in the United States and Texas, but around the world as well. The latter half of the 20th century marked the beginning of a slow shift towards reform in Texas, though. In 1970s, some Texas cities, such as Austin, decriminalized small amounts of marijuana, reflecting a growing awareness of the social and economic cost of prohibition. This was not a legalization of cannabis, only a shift towards more lenient penalties for possession or use of the plant. This is really no different than a police officer letting you drive 75 miles per hour in a 60 mile per hour speed zone. Many cannabis activists have shifted the conversation to one of personal freedom versus one of drug use or abuse. Cannabis advocacy proponents like Keith Stroup, an attorney and the founder of NORML, played a crucial role in this era. Stroup once stated, "We're not just talking about a drug, we're talking about personal freedom."